Advisor to Michael Gove, who, of course, is back in the cabinet, Charlie Rowley. Well, look, great to have both of you with me. Fatima, if I could start with you. Labour supporters must be sort of essentially quaking in their boots about this rather impressive new Prime Minister. He looks very sprightly opposite Keir Starmer, don't you think?
Mark, what can I say? I think definitely the first PMQ, Rishi Sunak has to put forward his best foot forward. So that's his A game. Right? So I don't think it's too early to say that Rishi Sunak is going to give the Tory party the leap and heap of sprint that they need.
Do you think he's still in the honeymoon?
I think he's in the honeymoon stage. And I think also what would be very useful is to have 100 days of Rishi Sunak. 100 days of Rishi Sunak, how he's performing, because we feel as a whole, whether it's the population and the economy, we just feel like people have just gone through a plug hole, literally, from the 2019. We're far removed from the Tory mandate and the manifesto, which is what now Rishi Sunak said he's going to work with. But how? How is he going to work with that? And I think he's cleverly done that in terms of the kind of the MPs and his cabinet that he's chosen to start off with. They say have your friends closer and your enemies even closer. So you don't have the rattle and the raging from the backbenchers, from your enemies that you have to deal with. So having them in the room and actually realizing that actually it's all of us. And that is why, apparently, he said, come together or die or something, some sort of terminology.
Yeah, pretty dramatic language.
Exactly, pretty dramatic for a leader.
Unite or die, I think.
Unite or die. And actually, when it comes...
I thought was the line from Rocky, but anyway.
Exactly, and I think for him to say that, it's actually hitting very hard. Yeah. And actually comes across as in, if we don't do this together, however they're going to do it, they are going to have to defend their seats as MPs. So actually, it's in their best interest. But what I see is that we as a community and we as the United Kingdom need to put the people of the United Kingdom first and the politicians second, because these are the people that voted for us.
And I hear what you're saying, Fatima, if we're going to put the people first, why would your leader call for a general election, which would create market chaos and huge uncertainty for the country?
But that is what we need.
How is an election in the national interest?
What
did they give you in the green room?
That is what we need, Mark. That is what we need, because,
2 months of uncertainty and then a hung parliament?
We're three prime ministers away from where we started. And even in the past 3, we're not elected. So, we need to have a general election. We are looking at a very different status of play. We're faced with an economic crisis. We have gas bills and everything else going up. The general food, items that people buy on a day-to-day basis, they can't afford it. So we need to go back to the people and the people to decide. It's not for us to decide.
Is a big spending Labour government the answer to our economic woes? I've always said Labour have done good things in times of plenty, but now the cupboard's bare, Britain's broke. The Labour Party, if there was a Labour government, in the pockets of the unions, giving everyone a pay rise. Where's that money going to come from?
Mark, we're still waiting for the fiscal responsibility report from the Conservative Party, which we should have had in summer, and we haven't had that. So let's go back and talk about that. So talking about Labour Party, we're not in power. We are making pledges and promises. And when we come into power, we would deliver on what we've said. But if we're having a government that is in power and actually we're faced with such a dire situation, as a whole, as a population, and without even giving us the fiscal responsibility, they're talking about this is what we're going to do and this is how it's going to be done. Show us the money. Where's the money coming from and who's going to be paying for that?
Listen, Charlie, some strong points there from Fatima. Some of it compelling. Many of my viewers will agree. Others will disagree. The bottom line is that Sunak got off to a good start. Fatima said it's early days. She's quite right. And the issue is that this mountain is just too high to climb, isn't it, for the Tories?
Well, look, there's no doubt that we've been through a tumultuous period, and it's a new change in Prime Minister. It's a bit like going from that pumpkin to a golden carriage from Liz Truss to Rishi Sunak, who has now led the Tories. He's only been in the office for 4 days. We've seen that bounce in the polls. I want to know what he's going to do in 4 weeks, 4 months, and hopefully 4 years.
I mean, the 6 point, he's recovered, clawed back 6 points, which is negligible, isn't it? Labour is still absolutely in overall majority territory. They're in landslide territory. However, significantly, Sunak seems to be beating Keir Starmer in personal ratings already after 4 days. I wonder how significant that metric is.
I think it's hugely significant because this is a guy who has got the experience. He's a communicator, which Liz, by her own admission, wasn't the best. But Rishi has led the country as the Chancellor of the Exchequer through the most difficult period of our recent history during COVID. He had to.
Some would say he caused it, Charlie.
Well, he would disagree because I think he would be saying that he was actually sort of trying to keep the economy open and trying to find other ways to keep life as normal as possible during other voices around the table that wanted to keep this country locked down. No less Sir Keir Starmer that wanted to keep the country locked down.
Keir Starmer called Freedom Day reckless, and we know from a recent Spectator interview that actually Sunak was quite a lockdown sceptic within the cabinets. And there was that Mail on Sunday story at the beginning of the year that Rees-Mogg, Sunak and Lord Frost had confronted the Prime Minister about not cancelling Christmas. So it's important to put that on the record.
Precisely. But what he's...
Not like your boss, Michael Gove, who's Mr. Lockdown.
Well, look, there were huge debates around the table, and every country across the world was having to deal with this difficult pandemic. And, there'll be lessons to learn. There's an inquiry going on, and everybody needs to learn their lessons from that. But what Rishi's been able to do during that time is to go to the country and say, look, we need to protect people's wages, we need to protect businesses and their income. So we stepped in with the furlough scheme.
If you're going to lock people down, you're going to have to support them.
Totally. And so he recognises the difficult challenges that the economy currently still faces, and which is why he's going to have to, and which is why he's the best man for the job, to lead the country through this now economic period where there are, as Fatima rightly said, there is economic pressures on people's bills, their food bills, their energy bills, normal day costs of goods, mortgages, pensions. He is the only man, in my opinion, that will know the pressures that people are under, and because he stepped in before, he'll step in again, and that's why he's the right man for the job to reassure the markets, along with Jeremy Hunt, which was a great thing that Liz did to bring him in as the Chancellor, and which is why I think we're seeing that bounce in the polls, which is why, as I say, after only 4 days, that's a good thing. Let's see what happens in the next 4 months, 4 weeks and the next 4 years.